Morning, everyone.
Good morning,
Good
Rabbi.
morning, Rabbi.
We are learning Mishnah Tainis, Parak Dalet, Chapter 4, Mishnah Vav, Mishnah 6. Very appropriate Mishnah for Erev Tisha B'Av. Okay, Chamisha Devarim. There are 5 things Eretz Avoseinu v'Shivas Har B'Tammuz that happened to our forefathers on the 17th of Tammuz. Until now, I've been discussing different types of fasts, and now we're going to discuss the fasts of Shavas B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. And so the Mishnah says that there are 5 things that happened to our forefathers on the 17th of Tammuz, and 5 things happened v'chamisha b'Tisha B'Av, and 5 things happened on Tisha B'Av. The Shivas B'Tammuz and the 17th of Tammuz, Nishtabru haluchos, the tablets were broken. That's referring to when Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Har Sinai and he saw the golden calf. He smashed the luchos, he smashed the tablets upon which the Aseret Sadibros 10 commandments were inscribed upon. Now, how do we know that this happened on the 17th of Tammuz? So the Bartanura says, and I'll read it to you from the bottom here. It's quote, it's from the Gemara. The 10 commandments were proclaimed by God on the 6th of Sivan, right? The 6th day of the month of Sivan. The next morning, which is the 7th of Sivan, Moshe went up to Har Sinai, went up to Mount Sinai to receive the rest of the Torah. He stayed there for the remaining 24 days of Sivan, which was 30 days long that year, and 16 days of Tammuz. He returned with the tablets on the morning of the 17th. That's how it works out. Because don't forget, Moshe was on Har Sinai for how long?
40
For
days.
40 days. So therefore, it all comes out at the end, starting from the 7th of Sivan until Shavas B'Tammuz. You've got your 40 days. 17th of Tammuz is when he came down and broke the luchos. The next thing mentioned is Ubatal HaTamid. The Tamid offering, the daily offering, was discontinued. Why was it discontinued? So they explain here, when there was no sheep left to offer during the siege of Yerushalayim that preceded destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. This Batal HaTamid, this suspension of the Karban Tamid that we're talking about took place on the 17th of Tammuz. The Rambam writes that it took place, this was talking about by the first Beis HaMikdash. By the first Beis HaMikdash, because of the siege, by the 17th of Tammuz, there were no more sheep to offer. Then it says, the next thing mentioned is V'hufka ha'ir. The city was breached. This again is now talking about by the second Beis HaMikdash, when the Romans breached the walls of Yerushalayim. We say this is talking about, let's put it this way. Simply put, we say this is talking about the second Beis HaMikdash because the first Beis HaMikdash, as recorded, I believe, in the book of Yirmiyah, records the walls being breached on the 9th of Tammuz. And therefore, if we say that we are keeping Shavas, we're keeping if we're talking about the city being breached on the 17th of Tammuz, that means by the second Beis HaMikdash. And we focus on the second one more than the first, because the second one is the exile destruction that is most relevant to us. The Sarav Apostemos as HaTorah, and a Greek general who headed the Greek occupation of Eretz Yisrael in the second Beis HaMikdash, burnt the Torah. Which Torah did he burn? So the way they bring down here from the Tiferes Yisrael, he's burnt the Torah written by Ezra. Burning the Torah is a terrible thing, but is this? Why would we? I mean, it won't be the first time in history it happened. Are we saying this is the first time it happened? But the way they bring down from Tiferes Yisrael is the Torah he burnt was the Torah written by Ezra, and they bring down again from Tiferes Yisrael. This Torah scroll was the most authentic copy. Was used to check the text of other scrolls. This was the Sefer Torah of all Sefer Torahs, and therefore, when he burnt it, it was a terrible tragedy. All right, Behem Tzelem Beheichal, literally translated, and he erected an idol in the Heichal, in the sanctuary of the Beis HaMikdash. Who erected it? So if you just read the Mishnah as is, it sounds like Apostomus burnt the Torah, and he erected an idol in the Heichal. But some learn, as the Bartanur brings down in Yerushalmi, that this who erected the Tzelem Beheichal, it's talking about Menashe, the evil king Menashe, by the first Beis HaMikdash. He erected an idol in the temple, and this was done on the 17th of Tammuz. Okay, So now I want to share with you something very interesting here. They bring down from the commentary of the Meiri. So the Meiri says like this: the 17th of Tammuz was established as a fast because the walls of Yerushalayim were breached then, and Tisha B'av was established as a fast because both temples, both Batei Mikdash, were destroyed on that day, as we're about to learn. The Mishnah lists not only those tragedies, but also others that occurred on these dates, so that when we fast, our inspiration to repent will be increased. Meaning, when the Mishnah says 5 things happen on Shavas Tammuz, according to this, it doesn't mean that when the Chachamim instituted Shavas Tammuz, they instituted it for these reasons, for all these 5 reasons. But it means to say it was instituted because of on 17th of Tammuz for the walls being breached. The fact that we mention other things that occurred on this date is that when we fast, we should be thinking about these other things that happened on this day, and when we're inspired for tshuva, learn the lessons from that also to learn from. So it's not so much that that's why the fast was made, because of all these 5 things, but this is what you should be thinking about by these fasts. Next, B'Tisha B'Av nigzar lava yisenu shel yikansu ba'aretz. On Tisha B'Av, it was decreed upon our forefathers not to enter the land. This is talking about by the sin of the spies. When the spies came back with their report of Eretz Yisrael being unconquerable, the day they came back was the 8th day of Av. That night, which is the night of Av, when the Jewish people cried and said we should go back to Egypt, and it was that night it was decreed that they would cry for all generations, and that generation would not enter the land of Israel, but rather die in the desert. So that happened on the night of the 9th. I mean, that occurred based on the decree came about based on what occurred on the night of the 9th of Av. V'charav habayis b'rishona b'shniya, and the house referring to the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed on Tisha B'Av, both the first and the second. The Nil Kadar Beitar, and a city called Beitar was captured. Now, the background here is 62 years after the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, Bar Kokhba led a revolt against the occupying Roman army. The revolt was initially successful, but then suffered several defeats, and Bar Kokhba withdrew with his army to Beitar. When the city fell to the Romans, all of the inhabitants were brutally massacred, as described in the Gemara in Gittin. So that was another tragedy that happened on Tisha B'Av. The Nechra Shoha'ir, and the city was plowed up. That's referring to the fact that after the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, the city of Yerushalayim was plowed under by the Roman general Turnus Rufus, which was a fulfillment of a prophecy. That happened on Tisha B'Av. Those are the 5 things that occurred. Then the Mishnah concludes, Mishnichnas Av, once the month of Av enters, once it begins, Mematin B'Simcha. Literally translated, it means we reduce activities that bring joy. So in the notes here, they bring down from the Magen Avram, one of the main commentaries of Shulchan Aruch, although the wording is Mishanichnas Av Mematin, which means we decrease, it really means we eliminate. Mm-hmm. The activities that we're talking about, that are considered activities of joy, that we say that we reduce during the 9 days, during the 9 days, once the month of Av comes in, these are not just reduced; they are basically eliminated. You're not allowed to do them. So that's they're pointing out. The Magen Avraham explains Mamatin, although it says literally means we lessen, it means more than lessen. We actually forbid it. Now, are there going to be certain allowances? Could be, but again, essentially, it's usher to do, which means that you eliminate it. And when we talk about simcha, activities of joy, just some of the examples we talk about is we must avoid business dealings for goods that will be used on joyous occasions, not engage in building and planting for joyous purposes. Have a wonderful day. And again, because of Tisha B'Av tomorrow, there will be no Mishnayos class. I hope your fast goes well and have a meaningful fast.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.